Hello, America. Welcome to the Junto Podcast, where we promote the practical applications of critical thinking and bold creativity. I'm your host, Edgar Mills. Thank you for joining us. Hello, America. Thanks for sticking with me. I appreciate each and every one of you good people. All right. So, this episode is not easy breezy at all. But I've been talking about contradictions, but then I got an episode on resentment. Well, I'm going to continue on with the resentment theme here, and I'm going to talk about something that's deeper and even more harsh than what I've spoken of in the past, and that's resentment in the immediate family unit, right? The husband and wife or children. That it can be explosive, yeah, but it's a slow, corrosive sort of resentment, and it builds. Yeah, it builds. That's why I say it's not necessarily explosive at first, but it erodes our connection. It erodes the way we interact, our maturity level, our emotional safety. I want to say that again in this episode a couple times probably to everyone involved. It erodes all those things. And that acid leaks in the gaps between what our expectations and our reality. There was the way we thought it was going to be, the way we think it ought to be, expectations. And then there's the way it is, the reality. Whatever idealistic fantasies of a carefree, young adulthood or youth, whatever freedom we thought we were going to have to chase whatever adventure, however we thought relationships were supposed to form and develop, it don't always play out like that in real life. And then throw in early parenthood. And now you have other little lives to tend to. What follows is a little explosion of, unmet needs, unmet wants, underdeveloped emotional needs, poor emotional regulation, and then sort of a cycle of, blame that you project onto the children, and they absorb it all. Even though they can't articulate it, they don't know what, but they absorb them. The blame and the emotional jabs. So that early, let's just talk about the mother-child dynamic here for a minute. Women who give birth very young, when I say very young, maybe late teens, even early 20s, but it was unplanned, right? Whether they were unmarried or they were in maybe a short-lived marriage that was probably doomed to fail based on lack of maturity. And then there's the unplanned pregnancy. Well, motherhood at that point can probably feel a little bit less like bringing in a beautiful life into the world and more like somebody stole your childhood or your young adulthood. They stole your time and your ability to find yourself. All your friends are out there going to the clubs, perusing Tinder, hooking up, dating, blazing through their 20s, trying drugs, sleeping with exotic dudes, maybe traveling the world, just living the life, so it seems to you. Meanwhile, you're changing diapers and getting zero sleep and trying to figure out how you're going to afford the groceries. What programs can I be on? It's not glamorous. It's not sexy. And really, even the most loving mother, it's not fun changing a shitty diaper. And those children, or that child, whatever, becomes, well, a highly visible daily reminder of what you feel like was taken from you, whatever that carefree lifestyle you thought it was going to be, whatever that self-discovery you thought you were going to have time for, because that's all traded out now for constant responsibility, and it's tough. It's very tough. Now, you may not build a resentment out of pure malice, and it probably isn't out of pure malice. I learned a new word doing this research, and it's called matrescence. But it's a profound, seemingly forced identity reorganization from going from carefree young girl to responsibility burdened mother. And look, and within that there exists real grief. It's real. I'm not taking away, I'm not invalidating your real feelings. But resentment is not the way. Resentment it's corrosive, and it's ugly. And unchecked, it will, well, we'll see. And the changes that happen during pregnancy in your brain are similar to they parallel the sort of development of an adolescent. And, well, the younger the mother having the baby, the less time that your brain and your emotions had to fully develop. So it gets cut off right there. That development kind of gets cut off, or at least paused. And so the young mother lacks the emotional maturity or the emotional infrastructure, and possibly even the support, the family support, maybe even, or possibly lacks anything remotely considering any child care knowledge and experience. That's where you're at. Your growth is now paused so that you can nurture a young life. And this it creates an isolation, and that isolation kind of intensifies your sense of your burden. And then that burden intensifies that resentment. And because of that emotional and mental lack of maturity, you don't have the capacity to separate your own unfinished development from your child's now need for, well, initially just physical development, just keeping them alive. But even from the brand new infant, they feel the energy. And if it's negative, they feel it. And it develops like that. Is it malice? Nah, not necessarily. But it might grow into that. The resentment can manifest itself. Well, it manifests itself in many ways. It can manifest as physical abuse. And that is no bueno. It's not, there in no way is that acceptable. And I know this is hard to believe, but almost worse yet, emotional abuse. Almost worse. Born of just you being harsh, or just neglecting or withholding affection. You become irritable that your child has needs because they're imposing on your scrolling or your texting. So you're irritated that your child has needs. Never mind developing them, just satisfying a base need. Mom, I'm hungry. And then you're either intentionally or unintentionally withholding of your, well, affection and warmth. Because you're irritated with them and because you have a little resentment, now you don't openly love them without cause, without prompt. And then you become critical because now they start doing little things to get your attention. Now they become even more annoying because they need your attention. They want your attention. They want your love and your emotional warmth that you lack. And now you're even more assed up because now they're doing little things to get your attention. And if you have multiple kids, now you got multiple kids vying for your attention. And you're overwhelmed because it's chaotic. And then any attention you do give is obligatory. It's cold. Mom, I'm hungry. What's for dinner? There's cold pizza in the fridge. So mom's more poor decisions have now created a cycle of poor decisions. And that emotional coldness leads itself to poor relationships because that's what the children have. And then the potential for substance abuse is always there. I'm not going to belabor that stuff too much right now. Financial chaos, the inability to manage money, and then all that frustration comes out as resentment toward the children. You have a mentality that you look at your kids and you think to yourself internally, man, if it weren't for you, I would be able to XYZ. Then the norm at your house, the standard is affection is transactional. It's conditional. If a kid's being quiet, they're over in the corner on their little device, then they get a little scruff on the head. But if they need something, then they're getting the anger or the coldness. So that's conditioning them. Be quiet. Stay out of my way. Love becomes a tool, or it's like currency, and it's only given under certain conditions, based on the child's behavior or their ability to meet their own needs, to do their own laundry at a ridiculously young age. Then what does modern research tell us? Well, it tells us that creates anxiety, creates low self-esteem, creates unregulated emotional capability, and then ultimately it creates resentment in the child. The child begins to resent you once they start getting older and understanding. I view it as selfishness. And it's selfishness, maybe initially it didn't, it came from, it was just a survival mechanism for you in this situation. And it was just, you're a manifestation of your own unmet needs and your lack of freedom and your lack of validation. How many people give you kudos for doing good? Not many, right? For doing the baseline, you don't get kudos. You get kudos for going above and beyond. And so since you don't ever get any of those kudos, you get zero validation. And inside you feel empty. And you never develop the capacity to deal with that. And what it leads to is a lack of empathy. Because you don't get any validation. You don't think anybody else needs it. You don't have ability to look inside other people, to include your children, to see how is this affecting them? Could I do something different to achieve the same goals, but where it has a more positive impact on them? You don't have the capacity to do that. You lack empathy. And you have this sort of sour ambivalence toward motherhood. Children are a burden. One author out there made the statement that mothers are supposed to hate their children at times. I wholly disagree with that. And there's two things here. One, hate is a big word. A very big word. It's not, hey, you're supposed to be annoyed with your children once in a while. Or you're supposed to be aggravated with your children once in a while. No. You're supposed to hate your children at times. And what bizarro world? Well, how? Why? Because hate is, well, I said resentment was corrosive. Hate, oh my God. And if that hate, it does definitely hardens into, emotional rejection. Like now you're not even aggravated with them. You completely reject their need for any emotional comfort whatsoever. And then you have zero mothering skills, so everything you say is said in anger or an emotional disconnection. And the children are existing in a state of permanent invalidation. Not only do they not get any validation, but now with that angst and that resentment and that hate, they're invalidated. They feel less than. And they don't even know why. They have no idea why. They just feel it. Thus the cycle continues. So mom's lack of maturity and maturity and emotional development drives further poor choices. The children absorb those poor choices. They don't know what you're saying or how or why or context, but what they do hear is tone, and they do feel the energy. And then as those children grow, they struggle with their own relationship problems and emptiness. Well, what's the logical step there? I got kids. If I weren't already married, I need to be married because I need help. Resentment between spouses. Oh my God. Resentment between spouses creates a negative storm, a corrosive storm that just eats away at all the goodness. And if it can't be checked, it has to be deleted. And it follows the same path of interrupted development. So let's set it up. Two good-looking young people meet, I don't know, out at a bar or online on a dating app, and they expect, that person's pretty good looking. Might be a little tasty. Let's give it a go. For whatever reason, they don't do the long-term math, and they do what they do. And then pregnancy arrives in the way that pregnancies do. There's a very predictable outcome. Putting your penis inside a vagina. It's a very predictable outcome. So, the pregnancy comes. And God bless you. You chose life over death. You chose to bring the baby into the world. And good on you for that. It was the morally correct thing to do. But then the subsequent marriage, the partnership, the contract before God and the state of whoever. You go into this partnership with zero emotional maturity. Neither one of you have any emotional maturity whatsoever. You don't even know that you have the same value system because you met and that's it. So you never even discussed anything of any substance. And any skill necessary for a long-term partnership, you don't have it because you didn't develop. You're still in development phase yourself. But the pregnancy put a pause on that. So the baby comes along, and now you guys are facing parenting challenges and massive incompatibilities start to arise to the surface. Maybe even alcoholism or drug use rises to the surface. Little secret sexual dalliances linger out there amidst the unhappiness. Financial irresponsibility is the norm, not the exception. You have no idea how to manage what little money even comes in. And you guys deal with conflict in polar opposite ways. Neither one of you have the capacity to deal with conflict in a healthy way. Neither one of you have the same capacity for intimacy, true intimacy. Anybody can have sex. That's not intimacy. That's just physical bits. Anybody can do it. Everybody does it. It's out there. It's crazy. Neither one of you have a capacity for intimacy because you're guarded. You're always guarded. Neither one of you take full responsibility for your own actions. You don't have the capacity. You don't know how to be accountable to someone else. You're not even accountable to yourself. You don't know how to be accountable to someone else. Each of you justify your own fucked up behaviors in your own way. Well, she did this, so I can do that. He did this, so I can do. It's scorekeeping. It's relational scorekeeping. I'm keeping tabs. That way I know what I can get away with or what I can bring up when I get caught doing X, Y, Z. And in every opportunity you get, even if you're not fighting about a thing, you focus in on each other's flaws. You magnify each other's flaws to chip away at their security, their emotional security, as opposed to building each other up. So you both struggle to find higher ground, moral higher ground. Well, I found this out about him, so but then tables turn. It's a constant turning of the tables. Both of you trying to one up each other instead of build up each other. Any honesty that may exist in a relationship is piecemeal. It's little half truths. That way you can keep the door open for your little fucked up thing you're doing. Well, my friend, though, we're friends. So you keep the door open with your half truths. Keeping the door open, that's a lack of accountability to your spouse and to yourself. If you don't deliberately close the door, you want it open. In any respect, if there ever was any, is now just eroded away and it turns into contempt and resentment. Thus the cycle continues. So what you call a home, now it's just a friggin' minefield of excuses and tiptoeing around explosive emotional angst, hiding this, hiding that because you don't want to deal with the outcome of it. You throw weak ass justifications at each other for doing whatever it is you did. And then you overly harshly condemn the other for whatever it is they did. Meanwhile, your children are hearing every word. Do they know what the words mean? Maybe not. Do they know the context of the words? Maybe not. But they hear the tones. They hear the mood. They feel the heavy mood. They hear doors slamming. They hear raised voices. They feel the energy. And all that shit that two immature, selfish adults squabble over gets etched into these children's brains. And they have two very fucked up models of failed intimacy. Zero rational conflict resolution. And zero self-worth. And what's the inevitable outcome of this? Yeah, divorce. Divorce is the inevitable outcome. The resentment intensifies so much that neither one of you can take it anymore. But still, because of the lack of accountability, you both feel completely justified without any thoughts whatsoever of your piece of the pie there, of what you did to help influence this outcome. You feel fully justified. So now you go to trashing each other on social media or going to trash each other in the courts so that I can withhold the visitation. I'm going to use my children as a weapon against you now. Neither one of you have been honest with yourselves. The children witness all this madness and all this mudslinging. Parents start ripping on the other parent to the children to try to manipulate them. And the kids are just pawns to be sacrificing your fucked up little game against each other. Thus the cycle continues. Your children have now inherited all of your emotional damage, all of your piss poor patterns, all of your immaturity, and they will never have a solid relationship. And they may never even be productive humans. And as this cycle goes on, and as you guys are doing the things you're doing to each other, without either realizing or caring what you're doing to your children, you're just contributing to a fucked up society. Because what you're doing is you're producing little humans that don't have the ability to interact with other humans in a positive way, and a way that is positive, in a way that can get relationships built and solid and lasting. Even going to work, they can't even have good relationships with work people because they're conditional, because that's what they've learned. And the longer term effects are these kids go out and they substance abuse, horrible relationships, one after the other, maybe teen pregnancies. If you have a little girl, yeah, there's very big statistics on this, folks. Very big. You guys aren't doing anything new. There's nothing new. You're not recreating anything. You're not creating anything new. You don't have any new, unique problems. Everything that you do with these bickering and fights and and cheating and drinking and boozing and running off, it's all been done before. It's in the textbooks. The answers have already been given. You're not unique. You're a cliche. The mechanism's pretty obvious. Emotionally immature adults who put their own needs before the needs of their children. And I mean their own superficial needs. Never mind the deeper needs. When your own needs take priority over all else, and you lack any meaningful emotional regulation whatsoever, and anything expected of you becomes a challenge, and you become defensive that anything is expected of you, you lack any ability to reflect upon your own part in this game, and then you treat the children as burdens and just annoyances, and that possibly even if it weren't for the children, the marriage could be better. And you treat your children like tools against the spouse, instead of treating the children like little individuals that they are, little individuals with emotional needs and developmental needs, real physical and emotional and mental developmental needs. When you disregard those needs for your own, or your affections are transactional, they're contingent, they're conditional, and that's what you're teaching them, that love is conditional. Use it as a tool. It must be earned. Love must be earned. Respect must be earned. Love should be unconditional amongst your family. It's easy to predict the future, folks. You can just go read the books. I read the books. It's easy to predict the future. Without any intervention, without any real and true reflection and accountability, thus the cycle continues. There's data out there, folks. There's data. Almost universal. It's everywhere. There's so much. This isn't some unstudied new science here. I already said it. You're not doing anything new. It's in the books already. You can reverse this. This can be reversed. Not only stopped, and you just go on with the damage you have. You can reverse this damage if you're willing to, honestly. But it starts with working on yourself. You taking responsibility for the way you treat people, your family, and not allowing yourself to erupt in anger or to show the frustration, to build your own emotional maturity, to work on your relationship skills. Do what you can do. Maybe they're not going to respond straight away. They might even be skeptical, your spouse. But you don't stop there. You're not going to get the instant feedback, folks. That's what everybody wants. They want the instant fix. Oh, well, I said this. Well, I said I'm sorry. Well, that don't change years of mistrust and abuse and verbal abuse and all these things. You don't get instant feedback. It's work. And look, the ultimate goal ain't just staying together for the kids. At some point, it's more healthy to divorce so that the kids don't have to witness this. The problem is they're just going to witness it again in a different relationship because you haven't worked on yourself. Yeah, you can get out of one relationship because it's damaging your children and damaging you. And then you get back into another relationship and the same cycle continues because you haven't fixed yourself. Oh my gosh. Together, as opposed to even considering divorce, consider actually becoming a team together and consider, hey, let's change the mood of this house. Now, I'm a strong believer that the husband sets the tone. The husband sets the tone, the mood, the energy. If you come home with a smile on your face and you hug everybody up, big kiss, scruff on the hair. Hey, guys, I love you. What you been doing today? The husband sets the tone. I read a random thing from one woman to another that said something to the effect of, he came home today and he chose violence. Not meaning physical violence, meaning emotional violence, anger. Choose together to create an environment where everybody is emotionally safe and secure to say the things that's on their mind, things that they are concerned about, to say the things that they're worried about, or the things that they love. Create the genuine connection, not just the little short pieces, the genuine connection with your kids and your spouse. You can do it if you just relax yourself, open yourself up. But adults don't want to open themselves up if they feel like they're going to get ambushed. And if you're ambushing each other at every opportunity, you're a part of the problem. Take your own accountability of yourself first. You should be accountable to each other, absolutely. Be accountable to yourself. And if you've done all this work honestly, and it still leads to divorce, the honest effort has been put forth. And I mean the honest, real, long-term effort. But the individual work comes first, folks. That's what nobody wants to accept, is that you have to fix yourself first. Nobody wants to fix themselves because nobody wants to admit fault. Nobody wants to look deep within and think, could I have done that differently? How did that benefit me really? If you're just doing shit to get the upper hand, you're all wrong. Work on yourself first. And then if you've resolved to work on yourself and you're taking actions based on that, which means you're consciously aware of how your emotions are flaring, how your anger might flare, or your resentment, or the burden that the kids are putting on you, if you just breathe it out and take that child not as a burden, but as an act of love. The love will spring up in you, folks. But I'm just talking utopia here. Therapy exists. Go to it. Take wise words from people who know more than you. Excuse me. Implement those things. Oh, and you guys, I always poo-poo on therapy, but this is a case where it's necessary because you've got two dysfunctional individuals come together to create a dysfunctional monster that are just creating dysfunctional kids. It's horrible. it's horrible. And you're just contributing to a toxic society overall, as opposed to a healthy society. Go to therapy. Name these problems. Open yourself up to accept that, like, yes, I may be a part of this problem. I may be contributing fuel to this fire. What are some tools to change that? You may find some long-term childhood trauma of your own. You probably will. Even what you consider to be pretty good parents, still, they were young at some point. They did not have the answers. They were going parenting trial and error style, just like most parents do to start off with. Some try harder than others. Some error harder than others. You might find some childhood problems that started early, but you can stop that from being transferred down the line, and you should. That should bother you enough. Like, shit, I got this from my parents. I don't want to pass it on to my kids. Now, I'll go back and say this. If there's alcohol or substance abuse involved, that has to get fixed first. And it's not an easy fix, I get it. But it has to be addressed. You cannot build anything on that foundation. That's a foundation on sand. And every time a wave of booze flushes in, whatever was built there goes out to sea. It's no good. Nothing is going to get fixed without that being fixed first. And you got to be honest with yourself about it. So therapy, there's some stuff. Now, there's some methodology out there, and I'm going to tell you about this one. I think it's a good one. I like it. I like the analogy. The Gottman Method, they call it identifying and replacing the four horsemen. And the four horsemen of the apocalypse, right? And those four horsemen of the apocalypse, the relationship apocalypse: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. Think about that. Are these things in your relationship? Do you heavily criticize one another or your children? Do you hold contempt for your husband, spouse, wife, or children? And think about that. Don't just say, no, I don't. Think about it. Are you always defensive? Every time somebody opens their mouth, you feel like you're having to defend your position or your actions. And look, some of them, there's nothing you can do to defend. You've done something so fucked up, it's indefensible. But you'll make up some defense. Think about that. And then stonewalling. That's just going silent. Calm's black. I'm not telling you anything. For some imaginary metric. I'm not saying anything until you calm down. Meanwhile, it's just causing more anger. Do you do any of those things? The four horsemen of the relationship apocalypse: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, stonewalling. And Gottman Method says you replace those. Now, it's a little anecdotal, but be with me. Gentle startup. So you ease into a conversation, right? Building a culture of appreciation in your house as opposed to contempt. A husband can come home and give his wife a kiss. Babe, thanks for holding the house down today. I love you. Take responsibility for your own actions. Then it says here, physiological self-soothing. That seems a little jinky to me. I liken that to maybe going to the gym, or maybe getting a little massage, or maybe not substance-wise. All right, no substance or no unhealthy self-soothing. You can get emotional coaching from a professional and learn how to recognize feelings and learn how to validate your spouse. Learn how to label your emotions, properly label them. Learn how to have boundaries. Even in a marriage, there needs to be some boundaries. Learn how to problem solve together. And if you can learn that together as a couple, you can then transfer those skills to your children. And in transferring those skills, you're building a relationship, a real, genuine relationship. It's not just go clean your room, go change your brother's diaper, go do the dishes, go do your laundry, go clean up the yard. That's not a relationship. That's not a relationship. So if you can do those things together, you can do those with your kids, and that'll improve everybody's reaction to each other. And then there's relational life therapy, a fellow named Terry Real, and then the imago dialogue. This direct confrontation of dysfunctional patterns combined with structured listening that slows reactivity and fosters empathy. Some people ain't there yet. I think you have to be a little more mature for that one. Yeah, some people aren't there yet. And then there's integrative behavioral couple therapy and skills training that helps to manage emotions and helps you to be more flexible in the way you think about a problem, and it helps you moderate your own behavior. And then there's some little tools. They talk about agreed timeouts, adult timeouts. Hey, let's just take a timeout. Okay, both go to your corner. I don't know about that. I'm not a professional, right? But then there's a thing. I like this one. It's kind of silly. BIFF, BIFF, the BIFF response. Well, even in a heated thing, be brief, be very, very short, and just deliver only factual and informative words. And do it in a friendly tone. Even though it's brief, still do it in a friendly, even tone. And then be firm in your stance on this situation. And then be done with it and let it simmer. The friendly portion is big because I told you, and I've said it a couple times, children might not understand the words, but they understand the tone. They understand the energy. So if you are delivering this, whether it's a critique or a pointed question, be brief, be informative, be friendly, and be firm about it. And then make deliberate, folks, you have to decide that you want things to be better. You, as an individual, have to make a deliberate attempt to repair the problem. Ignoring the problem don't make it go away, folks. Having done your fucked up thing up until last week, and then say, okay, I was wrong, but never admitting that you've done it, that may or may not hold water because it doesn't lend itself to the trust, that you don't trust enough to openly admit you're just admitting something was wrong and I'll stop doing something. Or you're telling the half-truth so that the door can stay cracked open. Then you're not really committed. If you leave the door cracked, you ain't committed. But if you use these techniques, and even in front of your children, that especially the brief, informative, friendly, and firm, they're learning something that's productive and more healthy than unhealthy. And when it comes to your kids, folks, your love, your attention, your help, your validation should not be conditional in any way, whether they did the dishes and cleaned their room or not. The love should be there. At some point, they will want to do the right thing for you just because they love you, not because you're going to give them some instant validation. You should always be loving with your children. Maybe not spilling over loving, but don't neglect touch, folks. Pat on the head, a little hug. Don't neglect it. It's important because children need that touch as well. Shit, maybe adults need that sometimes too. A thought ran through my mind. I was sitting on the couch the other night, and my grown-ass daughter, 24-year-old daughter, she comes over and plops down on my lap and throws her arms around my neck and lays her head on my chest, and I'm holding her up like she was a baby. And she just stayed there for a little while. That's it. I gave her a little kiss on her forehead. Don't judge. I patted her on her ass. My family, we hug. We're huggers amongst the family. I don't like strangers touching me, but that's another episode. My grown daughter. And then what came to my mind was, look, one of my favorite all-time movies ever was Rebel Without a Cause. with James Dean, Natalie Wood. And it was arguably like one of the first early, like epic teen angst movies. It was called Rebel Without a Cause. As most teens are, he was rebellious. He didn't like this and that and the other. Well, what he didn't like was the hypocrisy of his parents, which is also probably common amongst a lot of teens. Is they think their parents are all wrong and they're rebelling against whatever their parents are doing or whatever the system is. Anyway, there's a scene in that movie. Natalie Wood, I don't even know, was probably 15 or 16 at the time, maybe in reality, maybe a little older. I don't know. But they were high school students, right? And her and Natalie Wood, like that character, their family sitting around a dinner. And now this is 1955, folks. They're sitting around the dinner table. And Natalie Wood has a little brother who's 8 or 9. And dad's sitting at the head of the table. And the little brother comes in, and he's got his little atomic age spaceman gun, and blah, blah, blah. And dad's like, little scamp. And the kid goes to sit down, and Natalie Wood and she goes over and says something, and dad kind of is not ignored her outright, but just didn't really acknowledge. And then she reached down and gave him a kiss on the cheek, and he smacked her in the face. You're too old for that. That's not appropriate for a girl your age. Fuck. A teenage girl can't kiss her old man on the cheek. She needed affection. She wanted some acknowledgement, some validation. The little brother just got the little love, a little scruff on the head. The daughter, she told him something that she did that day, and he was like, oh, very good, very good. Then she gives him a kiss, and he smacked her. Can you imagine that? Kids need love. They need affection, even touch, even a kiss on the cheek or a kiss on the forehead. They need it. And it needs to be genuine. And it needs to be genuine. It needs to be genuine. Love your children. Protection of our children is non-negotiable. It is non-negotiable. We have to contribute to the development of our kids in a positive, healthy way. And I'm not meaning to be religious here, but in a healthy Christian way. But even secular, it can be healthy. But they have to know where their values come from. We have to care for the kids. We have to raise them right. We have to put their emotional development over our own damaged emotions. We have to do it. We can heal ourselves. It's possible. We can do it by taking accountability for ourselves, by choosing curiosity in our spouse over contempt. We can do it. This negative cycle, it's not destiny, folks. It's not destiny. We can be aware. We can build skills. And we can break the cycle. We can do it. You can do it. I love you, good people. Take care.